The excavation site on Kepler 442b had been active for 3 standard months before they found the chamber. Velen stood at the entrance, her breath fogging in the recycled air of her helmet, staring at the massive sealed doors that her team had just uncovered beneath 200 meters of compacted sediment. "Command, this is Velen. We've found something," she transmitted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The doors were impossibly smooth, unmarred by the eons that had buried them. No rust, no decay. Just pristine alloy that reflected her helmet lamp like a mirror. The archaeological team had been searching for evidence of the predecessors, the ancient civilization that had seeded artifacts, across a dozen systems, but this was beyond anything in the database. Arca arrived 6 hours later, descending into the pit with the cautious movements of someone who understood the weight of history. He was older than Velen by 2 decades, his face creased with the experience of 40 dig sites across the frontier. Where she saw wonder, he saw responsibility. "Don't touch anything until I've completed the scan," he said, though his eyes betrayed the same hunger she felt. They worked in silence, mapping every centimeter of the structure. The doors stood 15 meters tall, inscribed with symbols that predated known language by millennia. Arca's scanner chirped constantly, feeding data back to the orbital station where linguists and xenarchaeologists would spend years, deciphering what they were recording in minutes. "There's a seal here," Velen said, brushing dust from a recessed panel. "It's geometric, mathematical," Arca joined her, his gloved fingers tracing the pattern. Circles within circles, spirals that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. And in the center, something that looked disturbingly familiar, a handprint. 5 digits. Proportioned exactly like a human hand. "That's impossible," Arca whispered. "The predecessors died out 3 million years before Earth even evolved primates." Velen's hand hovered over the panel. Every protocol, every regulation screamed at her to stop, to wait for proper authorization, to let the experts make the decision. But standing there, in the belly of an alien world, before a door that had waited longer than her species had existed, she felt something that transcended protocol. She pressed her hand against the panel. The effect was instantaneous. Light erupted from the seams of the door, not the harsh white of human technology, but something warmer, something that felt like sunrise. The ground trembled. Dust that had settled for millions of years cascaded from the ceiling as ancient mechanisms groaned back to life. "Velen, what have you done?" Arca's voice carried fear, but also awe. The doors split down the middle, revealing a chamber that defied logic. It stretched impossibly far, its ceiling lost in shadows that seemed to absorb their lights. And throughout the space, systems were awakening. Panels flickered to life along the walls, displaying star charts and data streams in languages that shifted and changed, as if the chamber itself was trying to find a way to communicate. They stepped inside, 2 humans treading on ground that no living thing had touched since before their world had a moon. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and on that pedestal sat 2 objects that made Velen's heart stop. They were small, no larger than her fist, shaped like nothing so much as cubs' infant animals frozen in metal, their features smoothed by artistic abstraction, but undeniably meant to represent something young, something protected. "Are those ... double quotes?" Arca couldn't finish the sentence. Velen approached slowly. The cubs, for she could think of them as nothing else, seemed to glow with their own internal light. One appeared to be reaching forward, curious. The other looked back, as if checking that someone followed. Around the pedestal, holographic displays burst into existence. Star systems, planetary orbits. And there, highlighted in that warm light, was a small blue world in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy, Earth. "They were watching us," Velen breathed. All this time they were watching Earth. Arca moved to another display, his fingers dancing through holographic controls that responded to his touch as if they'd been waiting for him. "Not just watching, look at this. These are genetic markers, DNA sequences. They're human sequences, Velen, but the dates. These scans were taken 200,000 years ago. The implications crashed over them like a wave. The predecessors hadn't just known about humanity, they had studied them when humans were barely more than scattered tribes in Africa. And they had left this place, this chamber, with its doors sealed by a human handprint. "We're not the first ones here," Velen said, understanding dawning. "We're the ones they were waiting for." More displays activated, showing images now. Humans, unmistakably humans, but not like any from the historical records. They wore suits of technology that made modern equipment look like stone tools. They moved between stars not in the lumbering colony ships of the current era, but in vessels that bent space itself. "This is us," Arca said, his voice hollow. "Or what we're meant to become." The cubs on the pedestal suddenly shifted, their glow intensifying. The one looking forward seemed to fix its eyeless gaze on Violin. The one looking back focused on Arca, and she understood then what they represented. Not just youth but potential. Not just cubs, but humanity itself, perched on the pedestal of achievement left by beings who had shaped the galaxy, now passing the torch to those who would come after. "Command is going to lose their minds," Velen said, but she was smiling. Arca laughed, the sound echoing in the vast chamber. "Let them. We just proved that humanity was expected. That we're not random chance or cosmic accident." Someone looked at our ancestors, barely out of the caves, and saw something worth waiting for. The lights continued to spread through the chamber, system after system coming online after millions of years of darkness. And in that growing illumination, Velen and Arca stood together, two humans, far from home, discovering that perhaps they'd been meant to find this place all along. The cubs remained on their ancient pedestal, waiting as they had always waited, for the children of Earth to grow up and claim their inheritance among the stars.